Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com. Now, I've been meaning to circle back to this story for a while now. Um, Ever since E&Y announced that their breakup plan was basically over, a lot of people had comments on it. But one of the funniest I thought was KPMG partner Bill Thomas, who's the global chairman. He had a whole lot to say, which I thought was funny in itself because, KPMG is the smallest of the big four accounting firms, and they have scandal after scandal. They have the tax scandal in the US, which almost brought them down. They had the audit scandal in the US, which also could have brought them down, but just a lot of their partners ended up getting fired. They had Carillion audit overseas. They've just had scandal after scandal. They're also wrapped up in a cheating scandal. But he issued this whole statement. It was about a month ago now about talking about, he gave a nice story about his background, about how he went to KPMG, but he basically summarizes at the end. He says, to leave no room for doubt, we will not be changing our business model. To monetize the goodwill of our firm that has been created for more than 150 years and many of our member firms at the expense of the next generation would be entirely contrary to our values and culture. We are unequivocally together for better. So basically what he's saying is that the E&Y partners like Carmine DeCibio and other people at the top of E&Y chose to monetize E&Y's name and take them public. I think that's what he's trying to say, but it's just very confusing. Basically what the reason E&Y did it was multiple reasons. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of monetary reasons, but there's also regulatory concerns. They were tired of facing regulatory issues around the world because of conflicts of interest. Because the thing that E&Y was trying to do is learn from their scandals and split the firm up. KPMG could care less. KPMG thinks they're sitting pretty there. On what was hilarious is that Bill Thomas issued all this his long garbage statement right before 3 banks went under in the U.S., all audited by guess who? KPMG. And that's why I wanted to name today's podcast KPMG Will Audit Your Bank Failure. So there's 3 banks that have failed in 2023. It's Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and First Republic Bank. And KPMG has audited them all. And KPMG is going to have to answer for all of these. And and Bill Thomas and Paul Knopp, I think, have all issued statements saying that they've audited the companies to their standards. And that might be good enough for them, but it's not going to be good enough for investors, it's not going to be good enough for regulators. And KPMG is going to have to answer for a lot. And even banks are starting to point their fingers at KPMG for their failed audits of these banks. And do I think that the big four accounting firms are responsible for every failure? No. But when you audit 3 of bank failures, yeah, maybe there's some systemic issues in the way you audit companies, because there's obviously something that these banks are doing that you're not catching on to. And there's more digging that you need to do in your audit. Some more stress testing, whatever. And you can say that's not required, but when you have, and that's fine if maybe one of these banks go under, but if all 3 of them go under, and also if you're also talking trash about other big four accounting firms and talking about the purity, the integrity of your name, while you in the same month audit 3 bank failures and potentially a 4th one, then maybe you shouldn't talk so much. But let's go a little bit more into the bank failures. So these were regional banks, and they were decent sized banks. Their market cap, some of them were in the billions. Obviously now they've been parsed out to other companies. And KPMG does not earn that much money. It's which isn't very shocking because KPMG doesn't really have too many big audits. But the Silicon Valley Bank, KPMG earned about $12 million from them in the latest year. And they've been auditing them for over 20 years. First Republic Bank, KPMG, only earned about $6.5 million from them. And then another bank that could potentially go under is PacWest Bank. And KPMG only earned $2.7 million from them. And so for a total here of around $20 million, KPMG has huge exposure to their brand in the form of legal fees, in the form of settlements. So, maybe Bill Thomas should have monetized the name before all these banking issues came up, because this is definitely going to impact KPMG's ability to go to market and win audit work or consulting work on financial companies. But also, more to the point of how I started this podcast, KPMG's name isn't good, despite what Bill Thomas says. But I just wanted to cover this in a podcast because I thought it was hilarious how he said that, E&Y is doing it for the wrong reasons. And literally E&Y is doing it for the reason that KPMG is running into now. The audit can impact the consulting or the audit for the consulting firms of these big four don't want to deal with the audit of the big four. And this is case in point. KPMG's audit gets caught up in this huge scandal, and it could potentially limit their consulting work. And that's what E&Y was trying to do. They're trying to disconnect them, and to make it worth the audit partners' while, they were trying to give them a share of the consulting company. That way that everybody wins, because people know that the audit partners are going to take it on the chin no matter what. Because when you audit a company, you always run the risk that they're going to fail and the regulators are going to blame you and come after you. And so E&Y was trying to make sure to compensate them too, while breaking the firm up so that consulting can break out on their own and be more successful and not limited by conflicts of interest. But I just wanted to cover that, and we'll just keep an eye on these bank failures and see how many more KPMG is going to audit and who else they're going to blame for when these banks fail. But I can tell you on these bank failures, KPMG is not going to get off the hook easy on these. So make sure to subscribe to this podcast and check out our website, big4accountingfirms.com. Thanks for listening.